welcome to Out of the Hole. This channel is dedicated to help anyone and everyone who suffers with chronic complex health conditions. And today's video is part of a series I'm doing about fatigue called Fatigue, the Energy Crisis. And today I'm talking about something a little bit different. And the subject today is narcissists, the energy vampires. So, my name's Rosie and I'm a nutritional therapist. And today I want to talk about especially the effects of narcissistic abuse on our bodies, in particular with relation to fatigue. Now, I'm not a psychologist, and so I'm not really going to discuss narcissists or narcissistic personality disorder and what that looks like and how it affects people. So today I tried to research narcissistic abuse and fatigue, and there really isn't a huge amount out there about it, so I thought it was a really good time to talk about it. I'm really passionate about this subject, and I'd like to talk further in the future about narcissistic abuse, specifically in its relation to how it affects our bodies and how we can recover our health after narcissistic abuse, and that can be really, really important. So I feel that there's two main causes of fatigue in narcissistic abuse. And the first one, this is where the narcissist, the energy vampires, comes from. If you know anything about narcissistic abuse, you'll know that narcissists need a constant supply of attention. Sometimes some people just refer to it as supply. And they need constant admiration, they need constant attention from other people, which requires that you're continually giving out and giving out and giving out. And over time, maybe months, years, even decades, this can severely deplete you because generally you're giving out to them at your own detriment. The second main cause of fatigue in relation to narcissistic supply, I believe, is down to stress. Huge amounts of stress on the body. I'm going to go into a little bit, but if you want more detail, please see my video on stress and fatigue. So what happens when you are in, specifically a relationship, I'm talking about a personal relationship now with a narcissist. It could be a family member, but probably if you're particularly an intimate partner, is you go through cycles, the idealization, the devaluation, the discard cycles, and these can run continually over years and years and years. And this can be very wearing. One minute you're the narcissist's most adored, amazing person in the world. The next minute you're like something that's just crawled out of a gutter and you don't know what's hit you. And you're constantly treated to lies, manipulation, gaslighting, threats, controlling behaviour, you name it, and it is incredibly wearing and stressful on your body and on your brain. You're walking on eggshells trying to keep them happy, trying to do everything you can not to anger them, not to bring in the devaluation. Hypervigilant. So what this actually looks like in the body is this consistent stress sends our cortisol levels up, and it puts us into sympathetic mode, which means that our body is fight or flight. Our body is getting ready either to fight or to run for it. And this is a survival mechanism designed to help us stay alive. But it's not designed for us to stay in this state for a long period of time. What should happen is we see a threat, we deal with it, run away, fight it, whatever. and then the cortisol comes back down again. Oh, stress released. But with narcissistic abuse syndrome, that just doesn't happen. You're constantly hypervigilant. You often don't sleep. You're constantly trying to second guess the narcissist because you don't know what's going to come next. So over time, what happens is particularly the adrenal glands, which release cortisol, are put under massive amounts of stress. The HPA axis is affected and can dysfunction in effect. You may find yourself running on adrenaline year in, year out, which is incredibly taxing on the body. Can have this can have a multitude of effects and can cause disease in effect. So what happens eventually is this cortisol's pulsing through your body, constantly keeping us in fight and flight. Gradually we're wearing out. However resilient, however tough we are, eventually it all comes to an end. And this can happen sometimes after the discard, after the relationship with the narcissist has ended and we come crashing down to earth. It can actually happen during the relationship with the narcissist. In my case, I stayed with the narcissist for 30 years, and I will tell my story on another video because that's really one for another day, and that's probably going to be a really long one. And probably the last 5 to 10 years, my body was going into shutdown. I was absolutely exhausted to the point that a year or so before I left, my children, who were young adults, were discussing having to care for me, and I'm not really surprised. I remember feeling everything was so mind-blowingly exhausting that I really thought my body and my mind was shutting down. I thought I was going to die fairly soon. I believe I may have done had I not left. It's that serious. So you can come down with a crash. Your body simply cannot produce cortisol at the level it had before. In addition, while all this is going on, all this hormonal dysfunction and this HPA dysfunction can mean that you don't sleep. So in addition to being drained by your interactions with the narcissist, exhausted from the constant stress, you may find that you have insomnia, that you're struggling to sleep, which just obviously compounds the problem. So the number one thing you have to do to deal with this fatigue, specifically that comes from narcissistic abuse syndrome, is self-love. And this is bandied around on the internet quite a lot, and a lot of people don't really know what it means. But the very, very first thing you have to do is value yourself enough to realise what's going on and to decide no more. Now, this may mean leaving the narcissist, and I know personally how hard this is. It, on the other hand, could mean putting incredibly strong boundaries in place in order to protect yourself. But you have to love yourself, you have to value yourself, you have to realise you're worth it enough to do this. So there are a number of barriers to this self-love. The first one is codependency, and again I will refer you to other videos, other people who talk far more eloquently than me about codependency and how it affects us. But basically, if you're on a codependent cycle with a narcissist, it's your valuation. It's very hard for you to love and value yourself enough to leave. In addition, you are very likely an empath and a people pleaser, and you're used to giving and giving and giving at the expense to yourself. That's just what you do. That's what I did. And it's a huge barrier to that self-love that you need, the degree of self-love that says no more. The next one is a tough one. The next barrier is that you can actually become addicted to the cycle, the idealization, the devaluation, the discard. There has been much research done about how narcissistic abuse affects dopamine centers in the brain, and it can actually cause addiction. And a lot of people don't tell you that when you leave a narcissist, it is like withdrawal from any other substance. It's really tough, and this can be a barrier to leaving, or to putting those barriers in place, those boundaries that will keep you safe. So I'll just say that like I said, I was totally exhausted, drained. My body, all my energy stores had gone. I had no resilience. I was sick. I had multiple things wrong with me. Infections, inflammatory problems, skin issues, joint problems, you name it, I had it. I was just completely spent. I had nothing left. And I will say that within just a few weeks of leaving, my energy had increased amazingly. Unfortunately, that isn't all, because there are next steps. The next steps to self-love are healing the traumas, particularly the childhood traumas that are wounding you, that caused you to be with the narcissist in the first place. An emotionally healthy person would never put up with that stuff. So it's recognizing and healing from those past traumas. Again, I'll be looking at this in the future, and I will be putting links to other websites below. Then another issue that we have as codependents, as people pleasers, is actually learning to put boundaries in place, and that's in other areas of our life, with other people in our life, in order to give ourselves the space we need so that we can recover, and we're not under too much stress and strain that we still giving out to other people that we can't recover. Finally, the final part of self-love, as I see it, is love for our own bodies, and how that relates to caring for our bodies, making sure we give our bodies what they need. So giving them quality food so that our bodies can repair themselves, giving ourselves quality sleep, so our bodies can repair, sufficient but not too much exercise, so that we're not putting further strain onto our bodies, and just learning to love and bless our bodies, so that they're able to recover. Well, that was a pretty big subject. Like I said, I would like to go, oh, it's starting to rain now, I would like to go further into self-love, and particularly self-care for our bodies, in further videos. In the meantime, if you like this video, please click like, please subscribe to my channel, and if you have anything specifically you'd like to request for future videos, please say in the comments box below. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please click on the link below to my website. Thank you, and goodbye.